preschoolers, it's Mrs. B. I am back for another art lesson on distance learning. I'm showing you my collection of objects that I just gathered from around my house. And we're talking about two different shapes today. Can you guess what shapes we're going to learn about in art today as you look at my objects on my table? If you guessed squares and rectangles, you are right. We have rectangle, rectangle. This is almost a square. I think it's probably really close. I have a couple squares, and then the rest are all rectangles. That's my favorite rectangle. Do you know what that is? Mrs. B's favorite snack. So, what you're going to do today first is go on a walk around your house and spot some rectangles and squares. Now, what's the difference between a rectangle and a square? A rectangle has two short sides and two long sides. And if I turn it, it's still a rectangle because it has two short sides and two long sides. A square also has how many sides? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4. But all four are the same size. Does this have 4 sides? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. Does this have 4 sides? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. But these sides are all the same size. So what we're going to do in art today, let me go over to my classroom and get what we need. Our first thing we need is a piece of paper and some crayons. And you're going to use two colors. One color is your square color, and one color is your rectangle color. Can you guess which color Mrs. B used for my squares? That's right. I used that pinkish red color for my squares, and I used a beautiful blue for my rectangles. The thing to remember about rectangles is if they're standing tall, like this one, they're rectangles. If they're laying down, still rectangles. Does it matter if a square is standing tall or laying down? No, because all 4 sides are the same. So if they're the same, it's a square. If 2 are short and 2 are long, it's a rectangle. Your challenge now, what I want you to try is think about what picture you could make using squares and rectangles. And you can use any art supplies that you have at home. I used crayons and paint because those are two of my favorite things. We use that a lot in our Goodwin School art room, don't we? I use crayons and paint. And I'm going to grab my 2 pictures that I made. Let me make a spot here on my art table. I'm going to show you 2 pictures I made with rectangles and squares. Here they are. My first picture is what? This is a castle, and I used 3 big rectangles. Actually, this one's almost a square. It's still a rectangle, but it's close to a square. And then I used rectangles to make the top of my castle, and I used rectangles to make my windows and doors as well. And then I painted it with my paints at home. I put yellow in some of the windows so it looks like the lights are on, and the rest I left dark. You can see there's some people looking out of the windows in that part. So that was my first rectangle picture. My second rectangle, upside down art. My second rectangle picture is choo-choo, the Mrs. B Express train. I used a rectangle, and then this top part's a square, and the window's a square. Rectangle, 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 square. And then I made a train track for my train to go on. What's something else you might make using rectangles and squares? Maybe you could draw your house. Maybe you could draw a playground. What else do you think you could draw with rectangles and squares? That's all I have for you for art this week. Show me what you've been making with your rectangles and squares. I'm very interested to see what you make and what rectangles and squares you find in your house. Does anybody else have one of these at your house? That's a rectangle-shaped package of seeds. And this weekend, I'm going to plant them in the ground. I miss you all very much. I hope you're having fun making art at home. And I can't wait to see your artwork, your rectangle and square collections. And I'll see you next week for another art lesson. Bye from Mrs. B.